Hey guys, it's Violet here with Murder, Mystery, and Masterpieces. Today is going to be a wild one. It's about Charles Sohbraj. I listened to lots of videos to be able to pronounce that correctly. So Charles Sohbraj, got it. This person was actually recommended to me by my dad. He sent it to me. My dad's just as crazy as I am and likes to read up on crazy serial killers. I always joke I was raised by the Addams family, so if you know me, you get it. Anywho, I'm gonna try to stick with the facts and get through the story, but there's a lot of parts and pieces to it. And in fact, on April, I believe 4th, Netflix is coming out with a documentary or a series, a docu-series maybe, and it's called The Serpent. So this guy, Charles Sohbraj, is called the Serpent Killer or the Bikini Killer. And we'll get into it as to why he was called those. So guys, if I have to look down to my notes, don't get mad at me. There's a lot. And he goes all over the world, so I'll do my best, okay? Charles Sohbraj was born in Vietnam whenever it was under French sovereignty. And he was born to an unmarried Vietnamese woman and an Indian tailor. And since his parents weren't married, Charles was considered stateless. So do you guys know what stateless means? I had to look it up. At first I thought Wikipedia had messed up. But stateless means that he legally doesn't exist because he doesn't have wed parents. So this really ended up bothering Charles later, and I'll tell you why. But his father was running a struggling tailor business, and he didn't want Charles. So he left the family, and it was said that Charles would scream all the time for his dad. He really, really just wanted to be with his dad, and his dad just did not want him. It got to the point where Charles would run away to go see his dad. And of course his dad didn't want him, would send him back home. God, what could that do to a kid's psyche? Well, whenever Charles would get back home, his mom would actually end up having to tie him to a chair to keep him from running away. She said she did this for his own good. Okay. His dad was later quoted saying, "That child has a darkness in him." So maybe dad was onto something. Anyway, his mom knew that Charles was troubled. She did everything she could for him. He just kept getting into trouble. And eventually his mom ended up marrying a French lieutenant in the French army. And the family started to move around a lot because, he was deployed or reassigned. So they moved around a lot. Now, as they're really starting to move around and build their family, they end up having 4 other kids. And Charles was actually kind of pushed to the side, and because he was a troublemaker, and he kept running away, seriously kept running away. In fact, whenever the family was traveling, he went so far as to board a boat back to Vietnam to try to reunite with his father. Of course, his father sent him back because he did not want him. Poor Charles was not taking the hint. Poor guy. Oh, this is not the correct brush, but just go for it. We're going to have a little bit of a abstract sky today, okay, folks? If you don't like it, then you can paint your own. I'm just kidding. Actually, you should paint your own. Okay, we've got a really cloudy day. At one point, the family settles back in France, and Charles is able to get a French passport because his stepfather officially adopts him at 19, and he's able to get a French passport, which was good for his psyche and also good for his really bad ways because he used it to get around. And this is when he really started to commit some petty crimes. And he actually was arrested whenever he was 19 for burglary, theft, that sort of fun thing that every 19-year-old does, okay? While he was in prison, he liked to read. So he would read a lot. And guess what he read, guys? If you watched my video on the perfect murder, you would know that Those guys were fans of Friedrich Nietzsche, which I looked up how to say that. Anyway, they were fans of Friedrich Nietzsche, and guess what? So is our friend Charles. He read everything about him, so he loved his philosophy. He also read lots of things by Carl Jung, which was a psychiatrist. And Charles really learned and practiced on how to manipulate people, what traits people had, and how he could use that to his advantage. So Charles was busy in prison. I'm sorry, that tapping is annoying. Charles was busy in prison. He definitely didn't waste his time in there. So by the time he got out, Charles had a new outlook on life. But let me skip to that before he got out, okay? So while he's reading and doing all this fun stuff in prison, he meets a young man who is very wealthy named Felix Toscone that is volunteering in the prisons trying to help out prisoners. And of course, Charles befriends him. Now, Charles was very engaging, and people were drawn to him. You know, he's one of those people, you know, that like at a party you just want to talk to. Like, I don't know, you don't know why. They're just almost like a magnet. Okay, well, Charles was said to be like that. So he befriends Felix, and Felix actually helps Charles to get his sentence reduced so that Charles can be released from prison. So after Charles is released from prison and he has nowhere to go, guess what? He goes to live with Felix. Now, Felix is super wealthy. He's from a very wealthy French family, and he introduces Charles to high society life. Sorry, I keep looking at my light instead of the camera. I don't know why. Today's an off day. So anyway, he introduces Charles to high society life. Now, Charles, while he was in prison, had done all of this fabulous reading, right? And so he knew about philosophy, art, all kinds of things. So he could actually like talk with these people that were highly educated. And so he befriends all of these high society people, and he learns the things they like, and he gets invited into their home. And while he's invited into their homes, he actually drugs them and robs them. No one catches on. Not Felix, not the people he's drugging and robbing. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like you should put two and two together. But now, while Charles is doing all this shady, like, meet people and rob them, befriend them, then rob them, he meets and falls in love with a well-to-do Parisian girl. And actually, he proposes to her. And on the night that he proposes to her, Charles is actually arrested. He's arrested for stealing a car previously. So she still accepts the proposal and waits for him for the 8 months while he's in jail. And of course, while he's in jail, he's just reading up more. He's learning more things. Crazy Charles. Anyway, whenever he gets out of jail, I'm laughing because it's not funny. It's crazy. He steals Felix's sports car and takes his new wife, who is now pregnant. He travels down through Europe towards Asia, and he goes along what is called the hippie trail. And I will put a picture of the hippie trail so you guys can see, because I really had to do some research about this. The hippie trail was from like the 1950s to the 1970s, and it went from Europe all the way to Asia, and it kind of ended in, I believe, Thailand. But it was basically people who were hippies, were going on a spiritual journey. They all kind of pooled their money. They got in some old beat up hippie buses, like, you know, the buses with the flowers on the side, and just traveled around. Essentially, they hit up all the spots that sold weed, and they smoked a lot of weed. That's what happened, okay? So Charles and his wife would, and guys, I'm not going to say her name because she's still alive. She asked to not be associated with him. So, I mean, not me personally. She didn't ask me personally, but that's what I gather from the information. So I'm not going to mention her name. So you can look it up if you want, but don't be a jerk. Anyway, Charles and his wife are going along the hippie trail, and they are conning these folks. They are conning them by befriending them and drugging them and then taking their money. Now, not all of these hippies were like poor college students or dropout college students. Some of them were like intellectuals that had money and they were just going on a journey. And so he robbed them all. This is how he made his money. Now, Charles would do more than just steal money. He stole these folks' passports, and then he used these passports to really just travel around Europe and Asia so that he would not be, they wouldn't put two and two together and know that it was him. And he would steal cars, and he would steal precious gems, and that's how he made his money. He would find tourists that were down on their luck that really couldn't, they only spoke English or only spoke French or Dutch or whatever, and out of money, and he would befriend them and offer to pay them if they worked for him. Now, Charles was super intelligent, like I said, and he was fluent in 7 languages. So he made friends with a lot of people, and he would get people to work for him. And a lot of times it was pretty young girls that he would get to work for him, and they would flirt with people and end up swindling them out of money, right? So he ended up making this kind of group. Some people called it like a cult because he was their leader and they stayed with him doing the things that he said. Now, a couple of times in Charles's, travels throughout Asia and Europe, he would get arrested for really short amounts of time, and he would have people who work for him bring jewels to his wife to be able to take care of her and her daughter, because by this time she had given birth. Charles was always trying to think of ways to escape from prison. Like, he used spoons to try to dig holes in the wall, and he tried to drug the guards. He seemed to always have drugs on him, so that's suspicious, but yeah, okay. So he was always trying to get out of prison. He would feign an illness and get brought to the hospital at the prison and then sneak out that way. He supposedly was able to escape from impenetrable jails in India, Afghanistan, and Greece. So when I heard that, I was like, geez, like, at this point, I feel like maybe we should be asking him questions. Like, I don't know, get him to tell us how on earth that happens, I guess. I don't know. Oh, I'm getting paint everywhere. I got paint on I got paint on my thing. Oh no, guys, what am I gonna do? Oh, I just made that way worse. Like, way worse. Okay. Oh, I have paint all over the wall. Don't tell my husband, okay? So, sorry. At this point, Charles has gotten out of prison again, and his wife has had enough. She's like, forget this. She flies back to France. Remember, she has a really wealthy family, and she goes and lives with them. And Charles is like, all right, peace. And so he calls his younger brother, Andre, and says, hey, you want to come to India and come steal things with me and make money that way? Andre's like, yeah, great. That sounds like a wonderful idea. So he heads on out. All right, so his brother meets him, not in India, I'm crazy, in Istanbul. All right, and then they start their spree of tricking tourists, drugging them, robbing them. They make their way to Athens, and they're both arrested in Athens. And in Athens, Charles and Andre look alike. So Charles is like, okay, whenever they're in the car, they're going to the jail. And so Charles says, hey, Andre, when we get there, I want you to say that you're me, okay? Because you don't really have a rap sheet. And so what happens is once they find out that you're not me, they'll let you go and then we'll both be free. Andre's like, cool, yeah. So whenever they get to the prison, for some reason, the real Charles goes and sets a van on fire as like a diversion, and he escapes. So Andre tells the guards that I'm Charles, and so they're like, okay, we're gonna book you. They book him and find out that he's not really Charles, he's Andre. Well, guess what? He's still got 18 years in prison, and Charles left his ass. He was like, peace, sorry, that sucks. So I was like, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, you jerk. Charles left and went to Turkey. In Turkey, he met a French woman named Marie Leclerc. Now, Marie became his girlfriend, his accomplice, all sorts of things. She would later say it's because she didn't speak English and he had her passport and she had no money. Regardless of why she stayed, she became his accomplice, and they went along the hippie trail again, just drugging people, stealing their money, stealing their passports to assume their identities, and that was kind of the status quo for a while. Whenever he was in Thailand, he actually started to lure people into coming to live with him, and they would pay him either small amounts of rent or stay for free. And he did it under the premise of being a nice guy. And again, he spoke 7 languages, so he was able to communicate with lots of different nationalities on this hippie trail. And whenever they would come to him, they would be getting sick. And he was like, oh, it must be dysentery from all of the exotic food. So he would give them dysentery pills to help them to not be sick anymore. He was poisoning them. And it's not really clear why he didn't just kill them outright, but he kept them there and he held on to their passports in his safe. So he was using some of their passports to travel around, and they were still alive at his house. So maybe that's why, because if they were people reported dead and the passport showed up, that would be a bad thing. But anyway, so these people were like living in his home, and they were just being nursed back to health by Charles and Marie because they were suffering from dysentery, which if you don't know what dysentery is, you need to play the Oregon Trail, because that's the thing that you either died of dysentery on that game, or I don't know, you fell off your wagon, or an eagle ate you or something. Oh, I need to paint. Give me a second and let me paint. I know it looks crazy. It'll get there. I gotta let it dry for just a second before I can add some like palm fronds to it. Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah, he was drugging all of these people. They were staying with him. He was using their passports. Now about this time, apparently he decided to graduate to murder. And he had an accomplice named AJ Trudaji, an Indian national, and they would again go along the hippie trail, which, side note, Charles ended up saying he hated hippies. That's why he focused on them. Whatever. So they ended up killing, gosh, the estimate is between 12 and 20 people, mostly backpackers on the hippie trail, all different nationalities. They were killed in every different kind of manner you can think of. Stabbed, strangled, drowned, burned alive. I mean, like, he did it all. And in fact, 2 of his victims were found floating in tide pools, different victims at different times, both wearing little bikinis. So that's why he was called the Bikini Killer. It didn't really make okay, sure. I think I would have called him the Hippie Killer. Did nobody put that together? Is he called the Hippie Killer somewhere? I don't know. He was also, I don't know if I mentioned this, called the Snake Killer because he was so slippery, like a snake. So yeah, maybe. Okay. Let me get some paint on here. That branch is kind of fat, isn't it? Oh. So at this point, Charles is killing people with AJ, and the people who are still staying in his home, who are still ill, they start to become suspicious, and they eventually start looking around, and they find passports for people who had been recently showing up in the news as being murdered. They decide to leave. It's a good decision. And one of them, who is a British national, actually goes to the embassy to complain and report it, but they don't take her seriously because she's a hippie. Now, I had to keep telling myself that this was the 70s, and I guess hippies were not liked very much. I don't know. I wasn't born in the 70s. I don't know. Were hippies not liked very much? It seems like it, especially in Southeast Asia. Now, like I said, he killed between 12 and 20 people. Even his accomplice, AJ, killed him too. He was like, done. At this point, he's back in Thailand, and the Dutch embassy is starting to investigate the murder of 2 Dutch tourists who were backpacking on the hippie trail, and they figure out that a man named Alain Gautier is the murderer. Well, that's one of Charles's aliases. So the Dutch embassy tells the Thai police, please go get him. We're coming to get him. He is wanted for murder. The Thai police are like, sure, I'll go get him. They pick him up, bring him in, and then let him go. The thought is one of two reasons. They either let him go because once they started putting all of these things together, they knew it was going to be bad for tourism in Thailand, which was a huge moneymaker for them. The other thought is that he bribed the police chief with $15,000. So it might be both. I don't know. Anyway, so the Dutch embassy finds out. They are super pissed. Super pissed. Charles heads back to India with his family, which now consists of Marie Leclerc, another French woman, and another American woman. So these three women work for him. They're also like his girlfriends. So he's making his little cult, right? Making his little cult. They continue to drug and swindle people. And I didn't say it, but the drug he used is called strychnine. And he would just slip it into their drinks or their food, and it would just make them fall asleep into a deep, deep sleep. And then he would rob them. Now, at one point, the three women and him are robbing this Frenchman, and he overdoses on the drug. Charles gave him too much, and he ended up dying. This really kind of freaked the girls out because it's believed they didn't really know about the murders. I mean, they were like all game for Bonnie and Clyde crap where they're going to steal from everybody, but murdering people, they were like, hard pass. So they started to get very worried, and they were thinking about going to the police, but they still stayed there. Charles's next scam was he befriended a bus of French students. Like, how do you even do that? I need to put up a picture of him because it was said that he was really handsome too. I'll let you decide. I found some pictures where I was like, okay. And then somewhere I was like, what? But everybody just like loved him. So I don't know. It said that he was really handsome, and he just befriended all of these French students. And so he invited them to dinner at the hotel he was staying at, and he laced their food with strychnine. Well, he put too much, and they started falling asleep really quickly. And the students who hadn't fallen asleep caught on, and they ended up like basically jumping him and holding him until the police got there. Okay. So the police got there and arrested him, and he is actually convicted, not necessarily of murder here, but convicted of trying to drug and rob these people. And he's sentenced to 12 years in prison. And it said that while he was in prison, again, he's in India, so this is supposed to be like a hardcore prison. He lives a life of luxury. He befriends the guards. The other inmates are afraid of him, so he's like top dog there. He gets food delivered into the prison for him. He gets books and paint. I mean, like, he's just basically at a freaking retirement community, okay? So around year 10, whenever he is about to be released early for good behavior, the arrest warrant from Thailand resurfaces. And Thailand has something to where it's a murder arrest warrant. So they have 20 years to get the person once the warrant is issued. That's their statute of limitations. So it's only been 10 years. So he's about to be released from this Indian prison and sent to Thailand and charged with murder, where he would most likely be executed. Charles is not a dumb man. So, you know what he does? I'm sorry. When I read this part, I was like, no, he did not. So Charles, because he's about to be released, he throws a party in the prison. Yeah, a party. And he orders food in, like he usually does, and he laces it. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. He laces it with 820 sleeping pills. Everyone, the guards, the prisoners, everyone started to fall asleep. And Charles just walked right out of the prison. It was said that a lot of the guards were just sleeping on their guns, like they had fallen asleep that quickly. Now, of course, Charles is picked up back in India. He didn't make it very hard. He's arrested again. And his sentence is, wait for it, extended another 10 years. So he goes back to living in the life of luxury in India, and whenever he is released, the Thai arrest warrant has reached its statute of limitations, so he cannot be extradited to Thailand to face charges for murder. Crazy, right? So then he goes back to France, where again, he's a French national, and he goes back as like a celebrity. He is like a Superman celebrity, and he's actually even offered and paid $15 million for his story. Absurd, right? Now, guess what? He, being the cocky man that he is, decides that he still wants to travel. So he goes to Nepal, where there's an arrest warrant that he didn't think they would, care about. And he is arrested for murder. And whenever he is being interviewed, he says, "This is basically ridiculous. I've never been to Nepal before." Yes, you have, sir. It may be under one of your 75 names, but you've been to Nepal. Don't play. So while he's waiting for that charge to go through sentencing, he's actually charged and convicted with the murder of another person in Nepal. I guess his luck ran out. So he is sitting in the Nepal prison. Well, while he's sitting in the Nepal prison waiting for the first charge of murder, guess what? He gets married to a 20-year-old Nepalese woman who I will try and find a picture of her. I saw some pictures. Anyway, she's really cute, but she's crazy. She knows what he did. It's crazy, but she ended up getting her 15 minutes of fame because she ended up going on some Thai game shows, kind of like Big Brother. So she got what she wanted out of it. So I wanted to tell you guys what he said while he was in prison, because remember, whenever he was in prison, he was saying that he didn't do these crimes in Nepal, and he never been to Nepal. Okay. Ooh, this one's a little shiny. I like it. Okay, I'm going to read these. You're going to see me read it off the quotes because it's a lot. He's quoted as saying, "I can justify the murders to myself. I never killed good people." What? First off, how would you even know if they're good? And even if they're bad, who are you? No. He thought he was judge and jury. Okay, then this one, I was like, ooh. He's quoted as saying, "If I have ever killed," now he's like, "if I've ever killed, or have ordered killings, then it was purely for business reasons. Just a job, like a general in the army." It's not funny. I'm laughing because it's freaking absurd. I can't. Oh my God. The way that he got away with it so much. So yes, he is still in prison in Nepal, and he's still alive. You can look him up. And if you're really interested, I believe Netflix is coming out with that docuseries. It's more like a drama, actually, because they have real actors and stuff. Anyway, you can check that out. It's coming out April 4th. So you guys, let me know what you think, who you want to see next time. But don't forget to subscribe, comment. Comments really help the algorithm, so I appreciate it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a wild ride, and I hope it's not too long because I still have to edit. By the time you see this, it will be edited. But all right, guys, have a good week. Bye.